welcome to Move Better Every Day. Today's workshop is going to be all about freeing up your ribcage spine, your thoracic spine, and also the rest of your spine as well. And we're starting seated. And I'm just going to take my slippers off. So, let's get them out of the way a little bit more. So, as always, Move Better Every Day, all about just getting your body to be able to move more freely. So, the last class was looking at neck, stretching and strengthening, and then I thought I'd work my way down the body a little bit. So where we're spending a lot of time sitting, and you might think, well, why are we sitting again to do this workshop? Because it's quite relevant, really. And if you could find a seat, it's because it's quite relevant because we want to try and heighten our awareness of how we're sitting. But actually, the chair I've chosen isn't a comfortable chair. So if you want to do these exercises on a chair and make it better for your learning and the whole experience of it, don't use your dining room chair or the chair that you're sitting on all the time for working, especially if you're working from home at the moment. So find another chair, preferably a nice hard, not one with a soft seat, so that you can just heighten your awareness of your overall posture. And then we want to just get that rib cage and whole spine just moving around a little bit. So the difference, again, we're sitting in a fairly uncomfortable chair, this isn't a particularly comfortable chair, is it makes me sit up right from the start, apart from the fact that I'm obviously videoing this and teaching you a workshop about it, but it just makes me more aware of how the shape of my spine. It's not a comfortable chair to slump back in. It's okay, but I'm not going to be doing that. So let's start, as always, with reaching up, trying to touch the ceiling, lengthening the spine, both arms, hold them up, shoulders are up around the ears, ribs are flaring a little bit, and then lower the eye line and just feel like you're lengthened. And hopefully heighten your awareness of your sit bones, sitting right on top with the pelvis in a neutral and your spine ideally in its natural curves. And then let's just take some rib isolations. So you might find this quite difficult if you've never done it before. And we're initially going to shift the rib cage from side to side. So again, quite a nice thing to be seated in a chair because I can't shift my hips as well. I can only go from side to side. And I've sort of put my hands at the side of my ribs here and I'm helping to push from one side to the other. And I can see quite nicely in the monitor that my shoulders are staying still. So it's not a tip from side to side. I'm not shortening one side and then the other. I'm pushing the whole of the rib cage from one side to the other. Shifting. So the spine is curving. Really important movement. And also just to be able to correct that and to be able to fire up these correct muscles and use the muscles to get your body to do what you want it to do. And we're just trying to, this is quite a natural movement for me, it doesn't feel too difficult, but the first time you've never done it before, it will feel really awkward. We're just freeing everything up a little bit. So we've shifted the box of your rib cage, if you like, from side to side. Now I want you to shift it forwards and backwards, and this is something I always do in my classes. I'm just going to turn sideways, and you will be quite familiar with this if you've been following my classes. So spine is in a good neutral position at the moment, and then I'm going to shift my rib cage forwards and then shift it back. Shifting forwards and shifting back. And there's a change in my weight. I'm at the front of my sit bones when I'm here. I'm at the back of my sit bones when I'm here, just sort of behind the sit bones. There's a very slight pelvic tuck, but actually I'm wanting to shift the rib cage forwards and backwards. I think of it like, if you imagine your rib cage as a box, I think of the rib cage box, when you shift forwards, it's like you've got a little shelf there and you'll feel your ribs at the front sticking out, maybe. And so the box of the rib cage has shifted forwards, so it's hanging over the box of the pelvis, if you like. And then when you go back, imagine that same sort of shelf, but with your spine being a little bit more rounded, just because that's the way it goes. So this is, unfortunately, this will be quite comfortable for most of us, because that's where we spend a lot of time, unfortunately. This position, much more difficult. So let's now place the hands on the shoulders and help to make that happen, basically. So let's take a big circle all the way around. So we're looking at the shifting forwards and backwards motion. Great, and we're getting shoulders and pelvis involved a little bit as well. Brilliant. And then let's just keep the hands on the thighs and go back to that shift from side to side. It might be a little bit easier now that you've got the blood flow going to the right muscles, now that your brain is switched on with what you're asking it to do, but it's just about moving it around. Let's see if we can take a circle all the way around. So you're going forwards, side, back, side, forwards, side, back, side, and notice the same sort of movement, the same circle happening around your sit bones and your pelvis, and that's absolutely fine. I'm not looking for you to, this is why we're doing the rib cage, thoracic mobility, but actually the whole spine, and the pelvis is obviously attached to that as well. So it's moving the body as a whole, as one unit. Fantastic. Okay, so we have, let's take some roll down. So looking at the spine, mobilising the spine. So a classic Pilates exercise, generally done from standing, but we're going to imagine that we're standing, not getting the legs involved at all. And then the first movement here is to take your chin onto your chest. Take the chin onto the chest and then allow your chest to sort of collapse a little bit. And I'm keeping my belly button pulled in slightly so that I can keep my pelvis exactly where it is. And I'm allowing my hands to just slide down my legs. It feels quite nice. You might not be able to go very far. You might feel quite a strong stretch in your lower back. That's absolutely fine. And then if you can, roll back up. And it feels like you're stacking the vertebrae, one on top of the other. Let's take two more of those. So chin onto the chest, mobilising. Try and keep the pelvis in neutral. So what I mean by that is, don't let the pelvis pitch all the way forward so that you end up with your chest on your thighs. I'm almost holding back a little bit, which will stretch out the lower back more. Unravel the spine all the way up to the top. And again, one more. Chin onto the chest, rounding, breathing all the time. So now I've gone down to my hands to the floor and I can relax my head. Now I have actually hinged forwards more, so my chest is over my thighs, but that's fine, feels quite nice. But as soon as I want to come up, I'm going to get that pelvis back into neutral and then stack the vertebrae one on top of the other. Great. Let's look at another movement where we're opening up the chest. So take hold of the back of the chair. So this can be done standing. You can just put your hands in the small of your back, pin your elbows together, really try and open up the chest. And maybe lift the chest up to the ceiling and look up a little bit. And then just have a relax of that. And then pin those elbows back again. Feel like you're lifting this front part of your chest up towards the ceiling. And you're creasing over, you're folding over bra strap area here. I've got this top, you should be able to see that quite clearly. I'm thinking of folding over that bit as I go back. But primarily it's that as well as opening up the shoulders and the chest by hanging on to the lower part of the chair or placing your hands on your back, like I said, and pinning your elbows towards each other. Really trying to open up the front part of the chest and holding that there, breathing lifting the rib cage up, off of the hips, I can't speak today, lifting all the way up and then relaxing. Good. So we did a roll down, we were going this way, we were leading with the head and then rolling back up. Let's reverse that movement. Let's lift the chest now and then pitch forwards over your thighs, let the head relax last, and then roll up, coming back up. So we're lifting the chest, pitching forwards, hinging at the hips. I'm resting my chest on my thighs and my hands are on my legs to support, tucking the pelvis under to come back up. One more for luck. Lift the chest, arch the back. Try and flow through these movements or notice any sticky parts. Let's change that movement again. We're now going to roll down. So we're taking the sort of two halves of these exercises and putting them together. Rolling down as we did at the beginning. And now lead through with your head and arch the back to come up. So rolling down, and in order to roll down I tend to take my pelvis back a little bit, drawing the belly button in. So the pelvis is getting involved with this as well. So we're rounding the upper back, the thoracic spine, and then we're arching. One more for luck. Rounding and pushing through and arching. Great job. Okay. Facing forwards, thinking about the sides of your torso. Really important when we look at the shifting of the rib cage for a start, but also just the whole mobility of the spine. So let's come back to reaches up. I've done it every single Move Better Everyday class. It's so important to have that length in the spine. So reaching up, hold both arms up, and then just lower one arm down and lower your eye line, and then let's just stretch over to the side. Reach the arms out, stretch over to the other side. Reaching out. So use the hand that's touching the chair to push down a little bit. So actually I'm not allowing this same side hip to lift up. I'm actually pushing down a little bit on that side, and I'm pushing down with this hip so that I get a beautiful stretch in the side seam of my back. So push down with the hand just to keep your pelvis stable. Push down on this same side hip to lengthen. Let your head go with you. So quite often the movement of from side to side gets forgotten about a little bit, I think, when we're thinking about how the body moves. But again, very, very important to stretch out that whole side of your torso. Great. Last part of movement, the last seated thing we're going to do is rotating the spine. And again, if you look at just rotating the rib cage on its own, maybe just put your hands on your chest, elbows are out to the side. If you're only rotating the thoracic spine, have a little go at this, it doesn't go very far. So keeping your head facing forwards, the reason you've got your hands on your chest, elbows out to the side, is that you can't move your arms. So quite often we cheat with these sort of things. You've got your arms out to the side and the arms will be doing loads of movement, but actually the rib cage, thoracic spine doesn't really move much. So arms glued to the side, they don't move, your hands stay on your chest, hips stay still. I'm keeping my head forwards. I was turning my head a little bit as well then. So if you keep your nose in line with your fingertips, you can see how actually you only go to the corner. It's like 10-15 degrees, that's it. If you go any further, you'll find that you're lifting the hip up, you're rotating in the pelvis, so you end up with one knee in front of the other. If you're keeping it all still, it's not a very big movement. But that's not much help to us when it's already quite fixed and rigid. It's a bit like doing this. If you can't quite get it yet, it will be very frustrating because your whole body will be joining in to get the movement done. Same thing here. If you haven't got the freedom in those ribs, then it's maybe better to work on a bigger whole body movement. So we're going to just take one arm behind you. So sit at the front of your chair. Take one arm behind you, depending on how the back of the chair is, but try not to hit it. So you're looking behind you, you're taking that arm up to the ceiling and just bringing it back down onto your legs, and then swap to the other side. open the arm out. So I've opened up my shoulders, my hips have joined in a little bit, so I've ended up with one knee longer than the other, but I'm getting a full rotation all the way around from side to side. You will know if you're ever trying to turn and reverse in your car and you're trying to look out all the back windows, how difficult sometimes this movement can be. And sometimes we just get fixed with it. So make sure you're nice and upright, but allow the pelvis, the shoulders, head and neck, thoracic spine to all move. So I've taken the arm behind and I've lifted it up and over. Let's reverse the direction now. So lifting up and over and swapping over. And I'm tending to sort of take the hand to the opposite knee as I go back, which just helps me to just pull. There's a little bit of tension going on. I'm pushing out with the knee, pulling with the leg, which gets me a little bit more movement. Great. Okay, so let's finish off with a seated. I did say that was the last one, but I wasn't quite telling the truth. Let's finish off with a seated spinal rotation stretch. So this time bring your feet and knees together. Take the opposite hand to the outside of one leg, the opposite leg. Place your other hand behind you or hang on to the back of the chair and rotate around. And hold it and breathe. So sitting as upright as possible. Check that you haven't ended up with one knee in front of the other. Breathe, 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 and then release and swap to the other side. Opposite hand to the outside of that opposite thigh, other hand is behind you. Sometimes I push if I was sitting on the floor, I push that hand down into the floor to help me sit really upright and then rotate around. Again, there's not a great deal of rotation. There is rotation, but it's not a huge amount when you isolate just the spine on its own. But a good thing to do as a stretch. Let's do one more time each side. Turning, breathing, most importantly, and coming back to there. There was one more that I wanted to share with you on seated on the chair. Sorry. So sitting in the back of your chair. This will depend what the back of your chair is like, and it's like the one that we did here, where you're lifting your chest up. But interlacing your hands, having your hands at the back of your head, bring your elbows forwards, resting your upper back on the back of the chair. This is a bit too much of an angle. It would be ideal if it was a really flat back, as in really upright back, but that probably wouldn't be, it would be really uncomfortable as a chair. But ideally, the top of that chair should be a little bit closer, but I'm leaning back, that's fine. And then from there, I want you to lean over the back of the chair and come upright. Lean over the back of the chair. And this will also depend on your height, the length of your body, the height of the back of the chair, the angle of the back of the chair. But essentially, we're hinging at that bra strap point. So you're going up and back there. And this, again, can be done. It's actually probably better to do it seated. So what I like about using this or something similar is that I've got that contact with my spine. Just being seated helps because it means I can't drive my hips forwards. My hips are basically staying still, which is great. If you're standing, there's a tendency to cheat and drive the hips forward, so not so great. Brilliant, let's come down onto all fours. So coming down to the floor. So focusing on the thoracic spine, mobilisation. In fact, I'm going to go sideways-ish. Perfect. So my hands are underneath my shoulders, my knees are underneath my hips. Think about starting in a neutral position with your head and your spine. So pelvis is in neutral. So basically that means the natural curves the same as if you were standing up. So from my head, top of my head to my hips, my spine is in the same shape. I'm very lordotic, very curved in my lower back. That's my natural shape. That's just how I'm built. But my shape when I'm standing or when I'm kneeling here will be exactly the same here. You're just in a different relationship to the floor, and then obviously your arms are out in front of you. From here, I'd like you to try and drop your rib cage. So coming back to that box analogy, allow your rib cage to drop down between your arms and then lift it back up again. Just the rib cage box, let it drop down and lift back up again. Dropping down and lifting back up again. And it feels like and it might even look like, I'm squeezing my shoulder blades together, but I'm not. They actually, they draw together to close the gap that the rib cage has left, if you like. And the head, especially from here, some sort of middle of your thoracic into the base of the skull, that just goes along for the ride. So I'm not poking my head forwards and lifting my head back independently. I'm letting everything drop down and bringing it back up again. What sometimes happens is that we come up too far. We come up to this really over-rounded position, and this is exactly what we're trying to avoid with all of this movement today, and just general for our posture. We want to open up the front of the chest. We want the head in line, so we don't really want to go past a neutral position here, if you can help it. So rib cage down, rib cage up. Rib cage down, rib cage up. When you're up in the neutral position, your shoulder blades ideally are nice and flat against the rib cage wall. So that's isolating the rib cage forwards and backwards, or down to the floor and up again, if you like, on that plane. Let's now shift the rib cage from side to side. So if I face this way, I'm not sure if this is going to work on the camera. So I'm facing this way. So I'm shifting my rib cage now out to the side, coming back to the centre. Shift out to the side, come back to the centre. Shift and centre, shift and centre. So quite challenging actually on all fours. And it's the shift from side to side as opposed to just a shortening. We're going to do shortening in a moment actually. So now let's combine all of those four movements. I'm going to stay facing the camera actually. Into a spine circle, a vertical spine circle. So I'm going to face the camera for a couple and then turn to the side so that you can see. I do this by taking my rib cage out to the side, up to the ceiling, just for purposes of mobility, out to the side and then let it drop down. So I'm drawing a circle, but trying to hit those 4 points, going the other way, rib cage to the side, lifting all the way up, to the side, drop down, side, lift up, side and drop down. If I go all the way sideways on, you'll see it more clearly now. To the side, lift up, side, drop down, side, lift up, going the other way, ribs to the side, lifting up. So I sometimes feel like this is like your spine is a skipping rope, and you've got someone holding the skipping rope at your hands and your arms and someone at your legs, and it's going all the way up to the ceiling, all the way down to the floor, up to the ceiling, down to the floor, and then reverse. And yes, pelvis joins in a little bit, but try and keep the arms fairly straight. That should have got everything just moving really nicely there. Let's look at shortening on one side. So I'm going to stay this way. So no, I'm going to face this way. Make my mind up in a minute. So I'm going to shorten on one side. So it's like I'm now thinking about moving my hips. Moving my hips from side to side. Shortening one side of my waist and then the other side of my waist. So this is sometimes called wagging the tail. It's a bit like a dog when it's wagging its tail from side to side. There's no shift from side to side. There's just, it's almost like a semicircle. My hips are drawing a semicircle from above. So then holding that, hold on to one side, shorten one side, and now turn your head to look at your tail, if you imagine that's what you're thinking about. So look towards your hips, towards your feet, really increase that shortened side, but also focus more on lengthening the other side. Pushing the ribs out to the side and then come back to the centre. So no twisting, keep your torso parallel to the floor here. Shorten on one side, turn and look with your head and push out on the other side. One more each side. Shorten, turn the head and push. Shorten, turn the head and push. So again, stretching, mobilising the side seams of your torso and of your back. Let's look at a little bit of rotation on this side. I'm going to go this way. So coming down onto your elbows now. Elbows underneath your shoulders, hands maybe together. Take one arm into a salute. In fact, sorry, you want this elbow, the elbow that's going to stay on the floor, keep it in the centre. So, start again. Elbows are together to start with, and then take one hand away. And then we're just rotating up, and this is quite hard work. Rotating. So it's only the ribcage spine that's rotating. Just realised I'm flashing my skin, which wasn't the idea. So elbows together, we're here, lifting up. And there, swapping to the other side. Elbows together in the middle, underneath your face, underneath your shoulders. Take the other elbow out to the side and try and rotate. And this is actually quite hard work. Try and rotate the whole shoulder girdle. So the elbow stays in line with your collarbone. You're lifting and rotating. And coming back. Ooh, that was really quite hard work. Let's do... Oh, look at the time already. Let's finish off here actually on all fours. But now take your toes together and your knees nice and wide. And stretch your arms out in front of you if you can. This is the reason that this may be why we should be doing this in workout gear as opposed to regular gear. But we're here, so the hips are all the way back on the heels. Hands are nice and wide. And then just start by taking a slightly mad sway from side to side. But the other thing here is to actually push your chest down into the floor. So again, you're getting this nice stretch across the chest. This is also a great one to do on a chair. You don't necessarily need to be kneeling. But so this could be I could be standing and on the back of the chair, or this could be a kitchen worktop and standing. Knees or legs underneath your hips, and then you're pushing the chest down. And again, here's the sway from side to side. You will feel a wonderful stretch all around your armpits, outside of your shoulders, just opening up that chest, which is what we're after. Finishing off, nearly there. Yes, so we've done our sway. So let's take threading the needle through. So I'm going to come forwards a little bit more, so we're here. Take one hand underneath the other arm, turn your head, and if you can, rest your head down, stretch both hands away a little bit more, and then maybe just have a little sway and a roll around over that shoulder. Again, we're tweaking the mobility in your thoracic spine. Try the other side. Take the hand through and rolling through a little bit. Rest your head down if you can. Moving there. Brilliant. Pushing your hands down. We've talked about this position before. If this is available to you, then please carry on using it. If it's not, just come down onto just have your hips going as far back as you can, have your weight on your hands or on your elbows. And then I think we are done today with thoracic spinal mobility. I hope you've enjoyed. Please give us some feedback and thank you very much.